Berakhot 16a. Rabbi Hama, son of Rabbi Hanina, also said, "Why were tents juxtaposed to streams? As it is written, as streams stretch forth as gardens by the riverside, as aloes, ahalim, planted by the Lord, as cedars by the water." Numbers 24:6. The Gemara vocalizes the word ohalim, tents, rather than ahalim. They are juxtaposed in order to tell you, just as streams elevate a person from ritual impurity to purity after he immerses himself in their water, so too tents of Torah elevate a person from the scale of guilt to the scale of merit. We learned in our Mishnah, one who recited Shema out of order did not fulfill his obligation. One who recited and erred should return to the place in Shema that he erred. With regard to an error in the recitation of Shema, the Gemara recounts, Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi were once tying a wedding canopy in preparation for the wedding of Rabbi Eliezer. He said to them, "In the meantime, until you finish, I will go and hear something in the study hall, and I will come and say it to you." He went and found the Tana who recited Mishnayot in the study hall, who was reciting this Tosefta before Rabbi Yohanan. One who recited Shema and erred and does not know where exactly he erred, if he was in the middle of a paragraph when he realized his error, he must return to the beginning of the paragraph. If he was between one paragraph and another when he realized his error, but does not remember between which paragraphs, he must return to the first break between paragraphs. Similarly, if one erred between writing and writing, i.e. between the verse, "And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates," Deuteronomy 6:9, in the first paragraph, and the identical verse, Deuteronomy 11:20, in the second paragraph, he must return to the first writing. Rabbi Yohanan said to him, "They only taught this halakha in a case where one did not yet begin, in order to lengthen your days," Deuteronomy 11:21, which follows that verse at the end of the second paragraph. However, if he already began to recite, "In order to lengthen your days," he can assume that he assumed his routine and continued and completed the second paragraph. Rabbi Eliezer came and told Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi what he heard. They said to him, "Had we come only to hear this, it would have been sufficient." Mishnah. The primary issue in this Mishnah is the requisite degree of concentration when reciting Shema. Laborers engaged in their work may recite Shema while standing atop the tree or atop the course of stones in a wall under construction, which they are not permitted to do for the Amidah prayer, which requires intent of the heart. The Mishnah continues, a groom is exempt from the recitation of Shema on the first night of his marriage, which was generally Wednesday night, until Saturday night, if he has not taken action and consummated the marriage, as he is preoccupied by concerns related to consummation of the marriage. The Mishnah relates that there was an incident where Rabban Gamliel married a woman and recited Shema even the first night. His students said to him, "Didn't our teacher teach us that a groom is exempt from the recitation of Shema?" He answered them, "Nevertheless, I am not listening to you to refrain from reciting Shema, and in so doing preclude myself from the acceptance of the yoke of the kingdom of heaven for even one moment." Gemara. With regard to laborers, the sages taught in a Tosefta, laborers, while engaged in their labor, may recite Shema while standing atop the tree or atop the course of stones in a wall under construction, and they may pray atop the olive tree or the fig tree, as those trees have many branches close together. So one could stand on them and focus properly while praying. In the case of all the rest of the trees, however, they must climb down and pray. However, the homeowner, who is self-employed, in all cases, regardless of the type of tree, must climb down and pray, as he will be unable to focus appropriately. Since, in contrast to the laborers, it is his prerogative to climb down and pray, the sages did not permit him to pray atop the tree. Rav Mari, son of the daughter of Shmuel, raised a contradiction before Rava. We learned in our Mishnah, laborers may recite Shema atop the tree or atop the course of stones in a wall under construction. We see that he does not require intent. Simple recitation is sufficient. And he raised a contradiction from the verbal analogy taught in a Bereta. One who recites Shema must focus his heart as it is stated, "Hear, Shema, Israel." And below, later in Deuteronomy, it says, "Pay attention and hear, Shema, Israel." Deuteronomy 27:9. Just as there one must pay attention, so too here one must pay attention. Rava was silent, as he had no response. But he said to him, "Have you heard anything on this matter?" He replied, Rav Sheshet said as follows, "And this halakha, the laborers may recite Shema atop the tree, only applies when they are idle from their work and recite it so they can focus their hearts." The Gemara challenges this, but wasn't it taught in a Bereta that Beit Hillel say, laborers engage in their labor and recite Shema? The Gemara responds, this is not difficult. This, which says that laborers must be idle from their labor, is referring to a case when they are reciting the first paragraph of Shema, while that which says that they may continue to work is in a case when they are reciting the second paragraph. The sages taught in a Tosefta, laborers who were working for a homeowner are obligated to recite Shema and recite the blessings before it and after it. And when they eat their bread, they are obligated to recite the blessing before and after it. And they are obligated to recite the Amidah prayer. However, they do not descend before the ark as communal prayer leaders, and the priests among them do not lift their hands to recite the priestly blessing, so as not to be derelict in the duties they were hired to perform. The Gemara challenges this. Didn't we learn in a different Bereta that laborers recite an abridged prayer consisting of a microcosm of the Amidah prayer in place of the full Amidah prayer? The Gemara responds, This is not difficult. This Berakhot, obligating laborers to recite the full Amidah prayer, is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel, as he holds that one must always recite the full 18 blessings. This Berakhot, which allows laborers to abridge their prayers, is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehashua, who permits one to abridge the Amidah prayer. The Gemara objects, but if this Berakhot is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yehashua, why did the Berakhot discuss a case involving laborers in particular? Rabbi Yehashua holds that every person may also recite an abridged version of the Amidah prayer. Rather, we must say this Berakhot and that Berakhot are both in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel, and this is not difficult. Here, in the Berakhot where laborers pray the abridged version of the Amidah prayer, refers to a case where laborers work for their wage beyond the meal provided by their employer, while here, in the Berakhot where laborers must pray the full Amidah prayer, refers to a case where laborers work only for their meal. And indeed it was taught in a Berakhot. Laborers who were performing labor for the homeowner recite Shema and pray, and when they eat their bread, they do not recite a blessing beforehand, because the blessing recited before food is only an obligation by rabbinic law. But they recite 2 of the 3 blessings normally recited in the blessing thereafter. The grace after meals, which is an obligation by Torah law. How so? The first blessing is recited in its standard formula. The second blessing, he begins to recite the blessing of the land, and they include the blessing, who builds Jerusalem within the blessing of the land, at which point they conclude the grace after meals. In what case is this said? This is said with regard to laborers who work for their wage, but if they work for their meal, or if the homeowner reclined and ate the meal with them, they recite the blessings in their standard formula. We learned in the Mishnah that a groom is exempt from the recitation of Shema on the first night of his marriage. The sages taught the source of this halakha in a Berakhot based on the verse. The sages taught the source of this halakha in a Berakhot based on the verse, when you sit in your home and when you walk along the way. When you sit in your home, to the exclusion of one who is engaged in performance of a mitzvah. Who is exempt from the recitation of Shema? And when you walk along the way, to the exclusion of a groom, who is also exempt from the recitation of Shema. The Berakhot adds that from this interpretation of the verses, they said, one who marries a virgin is exempt from the recitation of Shema on his wedding night, but one who marries a widow is obligated. The Gemara clarifies the meaning of this Berakhot and asks, from where is it inferred that the verse, when you walk along the way, enables us to derive that a groom is exempt from the obligation to recite Shema? Rav Papa said that it is derived, like the way, just as the journey along a specific way described in the verse is voluntary and involves no mitzvah, so too all of those who are obligated to recite Shema are engaged in voluntary activities. However, one engaged in performance of a mitzvah is exempt from the obligation to recite Shema. The Gemara asks, are we not dealing with a case where one is walking along on his way to perform a mitzvah? Nevertheless, the Torah said to recite Shema, indicating that he is obligated even if he set out to perform a mitzvah. The Gemara explains, if so, that the intention was to obligate in all cases, let the Torah say, when walking along the way. What is the meaning of when you walk along the way? Conclude from this, it is in a case of your walking, meaning that when you do this for your own purposes and of your own volition, you are obligated to recite Shema. But when you go with the objective of performing a mitzvah, you are exempt.